All right, let's talk about the single biggest leap a trader can make. We're going to break down the journey from being an amateur driven by emotion to becoming a professional driven by cold, hard data.
And this quote right here, it just hits the nail on the head. It's the whole idea in a nutshell. See, the amateur is constantly chasing the money, the outcome. But the pro is obsessed with the process, getting the data, applying it correctly. They know that if you build a rock-solid process, the money just shows up. It's a consequence, not the goal.
And this really lays it all out, doesn't it? On the left, you've got the amateur's world. It's a total roller coaster of gut feelings, guesswork, and pure speculation. Then you look at the right side, and that's the professional's world. It's a business. It's built on evidence, on systems, and on being totally objective. The entire point of this is to show you how to get from that left column over to the right.
So where do we even start this journey? Well, it all starts in your head. It starts with the right mindset. Before you touch a single tool or strategy, you have to get your thinking straight. You can think of this mindset as your compass. It's the one thing that will always point you in the right direction.
First principle, objectivity. This is non-negotiable. Every single decision has to be backed up by numbers, by actual facts. We're throwing out the gut feelings, the I just think the market's going to go up stuff. Instead, we have to ask, what does the data actually say? Doing this creates this amazing psychological buffer against your own worst enemies, fear and greed.
Next up, reproducibility. Think about it. If you have a great trade, but you can't explain exactly why it worked or how to do it again, was that skill or did you just get lucky? A pro builds strategies that are so crystal clear, so well-defined, that they can be executed the exact same way over and over. That's the only way you can get results you can actually verify and prove you have a real edge.
And this is a huge mental shift for so many people. You have to embrace probabilistic thinking. No single trade is a sure thing, ever. Trading is a numbers game, played out over hundreds, even thousands of trades. Your goal isn't to be right on this one trade. Your goal is to have a small statistical edge that, over the long haul, works in your favor. And data, that's how we figure out what that edge is.
Okay, so if the mindset is our compass, pointing us in the right direction, then the actual process we follow, well, that's our map. And this map is basically just the scientific method, but we're applying it to the markets.
It's a pretty simple three-step loop. First, you come up with a hypothesis, a clear idea you can actually test. Something like, hey, I think this strategy works really well when market volatility is low. Second, you have to test it like crazy, using historical data and then testing it in a live environment. And finally, you validate it. You only, and I mean only, implement what the data shows has a real statistical edge, and you never stop refining it.
All right, so we've got the why, that's the mindset, and we've got the what, the scientific process. So now let's get down to business and talk about the how. What are the actual tools, the real-world habits you need to build this kind of system?
These habits right here are the engine that drives your whole system. It all kicks off with a super detailed trade journal. That's your raw material. Then you absolutely have to have a process to analyze that journal. That means dedicated review sessions every week, every month. That's where you dig into your key performance indicators, your KPIs. And that's not just about profit and loss. It's about your win rate, your average winning trade versus your average losing trade, all the nitty-gritty details. This whole cycle is what turns trading from a hobby into a serious business.
Now look at the level of detail here. This is what's so important. A pro's journal isn't just bought stock XYZ at 100. No way. It captures the entire context. The setup, why you took the trade, what the market was doing. It even tracks the R multiple, which is just a fancy way of saying how much you won or lost compared to what you risked. This detailed commentary you write after the trade, that is an absolute goldmine. That's where you find your edge, or you find your flaws.
But hey, let's be real. This path is not a straight line to success. When you make this shift to being data-driven, you're basically walking through a field full of traps. Just knowing what they are is half the battle.
So what are these big hazards you're going to face? What are the things that can completely derail you? Well, let's start with the one that's probably the most tempting of them all.
First up is the siren song of over-optimization. You'll also hear it called curve fitting. This is when you tweak and tune a strategy on past data until it looks perfect, flawless even. The problem is, you haven't found a real edge. You've just perfectly modeled the random noise of the past. The second you go live, the strategy just completely falls apart because the future is never an exact copy of the past.
Next, we have a classic trap our brains love to fall into, confirmation bias.
It's our natural human tendency to only look for data that proves what we already believe is true. We'll subconsciously ignore all the evidence that tells us we're wrong. A truly data-driven trader has to fight this constantly. You have to actively try to prove your own ideas wrong.
And finally, there's analysis paralysis. You can get so deep into the spreadsheets, so lost in the charts and the data, that you forget to actually trade. You become a data librarian instead of a trader. You have to remember, the whole point of collecting all this data is to make better decisions, not to just study forever without ever pulling the trigger.
So let's say you do it. You adopt the mindset, you build a system, and you manage to avoid those nasty pitfalls. What's the payoff? What does this professional edge, our final destination, actually look and feel like?
The destination is this powerful mix of benefits that all feed each other. When you trust your system, the emotion just melts away. And with less emotion, you get way better, much more precise risk control. That, in turn, builds real confidence, not fake bravado, but confidence rooted in actual evidence. And all of that together leads to a much faster learning curve, and ultimately, the potential for real, sustainable growth.
And that's really the whole ballgame. This is the big transformation. You stop treating the market like a casino, and you start running it like a high-performance business. A business with metrics, with strategic plans, and with a clear, measurable edge that you work to protect and improve day in and day out.
Which brings us to the one final, crucial question you have to ask yourself. When you really look at what you're doing in the markets, are you methodically building a system that has a verifiable edge? Or are you just placing bets and hoping for the best? The answer to that question will define your entire future as a trader.